All right, welcome back. After a brief hiatus, I'm back. I was sick last week. Apologies. My name is Jay Shatara, and a big shout out and thanks to Brandon Cortez and Steve Raju for holding down the fort, talking about Dumb Money, which, by the way, still hasn't released in my area. I'm a little salty about that, so I haven't had a chance to watch it.
So
But
regardless,
when
it's
it
going to
does,
be an awkward review for you last week if
yeah,
you were
I would have
if
had
you were
no
healthy.
way. And we don't pirate around here, okay? So we're respectful of the box office.
Yeah,
But
wink,
hey,
wink.
but hey, listen, we have a lot to get to in this episode. In the biggest thing that happened this week is Ahsoka. Ahsoka wrapped up. We didn't get a chance to talk about episode 7 yet. And now the finale, episode 8. So overall, actually, we really probably don't need to talk much about 7. You know, it's a classic setup episode. Ahsoka meets Ezra, they reunite, but then we jump right into the action in 8. I thought the finale was interesting. I thought for all the buildup of the series, it did fall a little flat in my opinion, and that's been a recurring theme on Disney Plus in general. Really good shows with sort of no cohesive vision in the finale. The last time I can think of like an elite finale on a Disney Plus show was Mandalorian season 2. That was to me some really good closure, and then it kind of came undone with Book of Boba Fett, anyways. But this was a good finale in my opinion. I kind of like how it ended. The reason I say it falls flat is because they haven't greenlit a second season. Now I assume a second season is coming the way it ended, but I don't know how you end it like with so many unanswered questions without a second season confirmed. I
Mhm.
don't know if that has to do with the strike. I don't know. I don't know. But for me, that's the reason it falls flat. Other than that, I did love the finale. Um, you know, Andor to me was like a spy crime thriller that's going to lead to Rogue One. This to me, this whole series was Star Wars. It felt Star Wars. We had dogfights in space, on the
Mhm.
ground, and this finale really had that. So I really, really enjoyed that. I loved seeing the zombie troopers. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a cool touch. Some
Mhm.
darkness from Dave Filoni there. Seeing Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka as a trio in action was really, really cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
really good action. To me, a solid finale. I have a lot of questions, and I would hope a second season is going to get greenlit here.
Yeah, great thoughts. What you mentioned about the Disney Plus finales is really hard. I can tell you overall, even the MCU with the shows, I want to say Loki might be the only series that it really had a really
Hmm.
strong finale, with introducing Kang the Conqueror. Just everything felt right. Uh, it it always worries me when it comes to the finales for the Disney Plus shows. And I thought this was okay. Like I thought it was really good. I felt satisfied with how it ended. I think we'll get into a little bit of that later on. There was, I guess you can say, a satisfying part to it, but it did feel a little bit Infinity War esque, where it was like the way it ended, it had to continue at least
Hmm.
for some of these characters. Like there has to be a conclusion to how that, whether that goes into a season 2, whether that goes into the Filoni verse movie, however that comes out to be, if that still is going to come out to be. But apart from that, it did feel a little bit like, hey, there were some unanswered questions. We saw this with the secondary antagonists. I feel like we kind of forgot about them
Hmm.
throughout the
Yeah.
entire episode. I was like, oh, you know what? There's Balin. So I was like, there's definitely some things that were unanswered that I agree that I wish we kind of received, especially with the risk of there being possibly no season 2. It's going to be something that we're just going to have to wait patiently for what it concludes to.
Yeah, and before we jump to Steve, who I do, that's a great point, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually just texting a friend today as he watched the finale last night as well. And he was like, and I said the same thing. I kind of forgot Balin and Shin existed for a second. And
Yeah.
then they appear in the last 5 minutes of the episode. So I agree, but I'm curious to hear
Yeah.
Steve's thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I felt a little like it was a undercooked finale. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was expecting more of a grandiose finish to the season, and I think Jay and Brandon, I feel like it was a finale. It was almost like a mid-season finale in a way,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
where it's
Yeah.
like the classic TV shows, cable TV shows that would have 16 episodes, 20 episodes. You'd have a
Mm-hmm.
mid-season finale that would be, tie up some things,
Mm-hmm.
but would leave the rest to be finished in the next 10 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
which really leads to the theory of, hey, they were supposed to announce a second season if it wasn't for the strikes, probably, or possibly, or if it wasn't for whatever ancillary reason, because that's what it feels like with this season
Mhm.
finale. It felt like we got a kind of an underbaked, a little bit of a lackluster episode because I going into this as a non I like Star Wars. So when I say non-Star Wars fan, it feels like, I don't like Star Wars. No, I
Mhm.
like Star Wars.
Yeah.
However, without the background information of Rebels and hazy on really the whole lore of Star Wars, I feel like the show should have done a better job in the finale by giving me a climactic, um, emotionally resonant ending, um, to a show that features Ahsoka, features some interesting characters, but I felt like it ended in a way where it's like, hey, just to let you know, we have to have a second season to tie up the loose ends. And that was the thing. I like the lightsaber battles. I like the zombie stormtroopers. I remember, Bill, you said that was something that was a part of the books, correct? The zombie
Yeah, a comic
a
series.
comic.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
managed to tie that in. I thought that was pretty cool. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I thought the Sabine stuff was. I I just the thing is I don't know how powerful she is. Like how powerful are these characters supposed to be?
Yeah.
You guys have a better idea of it because I think in Star Wars, especially in Star Wars culture, in a way, there's a significant level of, I guess, interest or intrigue into how
Mhm.
strong certain characters are,
Yeah.
right? And the power levels of them. Obviously, you got your Darth Vader, who's tip of the top. You have some of your middling characters. And my thing with Sabine was I felt like they retroactively scaled her power so much that felt unrealistic. And I'm not familiar with Sabine's power levels from Rebels, so Jay, Brandon, feel free to educate me if she had this type of potential to be, you know, using the Force at a level that was greater than, for example, Ezra. Like her ability to push Ezra to the destroyer, a
Yeah.
pretty far distance. I was like, didn't she just get the Force? Like, so uh and I thought the Morgan Elizabeth fight was pretty decently done.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I guess not really the most exciting Star Wars fight I've seen. It's not on the level of Obi-Wan versus Anakin in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
But I did think her I liked how they made her like I don't think she was the right villain to end the season with as, "Hey, we're gonna kill this villain off."
Mhm.
I would think it'd be Balin as a more satisfying end of season 1 kind of
Mhm.
battle.
For sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
Thrawn, but we obviously know there's bigger plans with Thrawn. But I did like the fact that Thrawn, was able to use his witches to make her a Dathomir witch is basically what happened, right?
Mhm.
And I did like the fight. But I thought there should have been more of a grandiose, I guess, stakes involved. I mean, we obviously know that they're stranded in this galaxy now. There's not a lot of resolution. We don't really know what's going on with Balin. We know he's standing in front of that statue that I had to research online. I was the statue. What is the statue called? Or
Uh,
the
s-
engravings?
so shout out to Twitter for actually catching this because I don't even think I caught it on first glance, but there are three statues that he was standing on. It was of the father, the son, and the daughter. And I always tell people, listen, Clone Wars is a lot. It's like
Mm.
7 seasons of filler. But if you're ever
Mhm.
gonna watch one arc in all of Clone Wars, it's the Mortis Gods arc. It's where Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan are traveling and they get caught in a dimension to another galaxy and they see these three force gods. You have the father who represents both the light and the dark side, the daughter who's the light side, and the son who's the dark side. And basically, a quick recap of those 3 episode arc is, the daughter, the son who's on the dark side kills Ahsoka. The daughter sacrifices her life force and gives it to Ahsoka, but she dies. And then the son shows Anakin his future as Darth Vader, but then Anakin kills him, and the father eventually wipes his memory. It's a whole thing. And the father eventually dies. So there's theories out there that the new father is actually Anakin because he is both light and dark, and that because the daughter lives in Ahsoka, she's the new daughter, and we're looking for our son now, who some people think could be Balin.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know, but that's what those statues were of. Yes.
Yeah, and appreciate that, Jay, because I was confused on what I was seeing. But I also, but really, what I wanted to understand was where Balin's journey was going. I really
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And obviously, with Ray Stevenson's character, or Ray Stevenson as the actor passing away, now it's pretty clear that Balin's going to be recasted for a potential season 2. But obviously, we have that. We're not sure if there is a season 2. But I will say some of the things that I liked. I liked Thrawn in this episode. I liked how you could see the influence and the tactical mindset he has, the big bad that he is. I thought we got a nice glimpse of it. Him turning Morgan Elizabeth into a witch and whatnot. And so I'm encouraged, and I didn't want to see him killed off. So I do like the direction they're going with Thrawn. That now he's in the main galaxy now, and he's probably going to be the big bad of the whole Filoni verse, definitely. But I will say that I thought it was pretty lackluster. I don't think the stakes were too high. I didn't really love Sabine's character. I think not in terms of the actress. I think the way they did the character, I didn't understand her power scaling, because at the end of the day, I don't think someone who really is a rookie when it comes to Force, who just learned the Force, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. She just learned the Force and she's using it pretty powerfully. I thought because it's a Disney product, we should have seen more of a gruesome fight scene between them and the zombie troopers, because it felt like they were handicapped fighting them, but the zombie troopers seemed as if they were, I don't know, pretty incoherent, obviously because they're zombies, but also they didn't seem like that hard to beat. I felt like you three are lightsaber users. You should be able to dismember these guys.
That was a big issue too. Yeah,
that's like classic Star Wars, right? And
yep.
they felt almost helpless. And Ahsoka, she's a big bad, not really a Jedi master, but a rogue master of the Force, right? And she felt almost a little helpless against an army of stormtroopers that I know there was a lot, but they didn't seem that powerful to me. So that's my gripes. I mean, Jay, Brandon, please feel free to respond to I guess my gripes with it and your thoughts.
Well, you touched on something that I think is an overarching issue. And I'll start going back to Kevin Feige. When these Disney Plus shows were announced for Marvel, Kevin Feige said, our movies are not going to have to be to the point where you have to watch the shows. And then Doctor Strange came out, and you're like, wait, if I didn't watch WandaVision, I have no clue what's going. Why does Wanda have kids? Why is she evil? Why are these things happening? If you didn't watch Loki, you're kind of just like, why is there another king? What is this purple multiverse thing? So, and this is kind of happening for Star Wars, is that they talked about, you shouldn't have to watch Clone Wars and Rebels to understand these Star Wars shows. But I'm now looking at, Mandalorian, and I'll use Book of Boba Fett as an example. The big Cad Bane reveal. Me as a Clone Wars nerd, I was all over that. I was like, oh my God, here's Cad Bane, this amazing character, bounty hunter, who's on the same level as Boba Fett, and you don't even know that he was still alive. And if you're not a Clone Wars fan, you're like, who's this random blue guy showing up with freaking ventilators coming out of his neck?
It's all the random blue guys. So
it's always a blue guy. So it is, maybe this is just an overarching issue with these Disney Plus shows that, and then I think another part of it is the formula. I'm not a fan of the formula. I think the original plan for Book of Boba Fett was actually to be a movie. And then they said, well, we'll break it up into a 6 episode. So it's like a 6-hour movie. But is it really? We're getting these like 30 to 40-minute episodes. I feel like we're kind of really leaving a lot of loose ends in all of these shows. So maybe I'd really be curious on your guys' thoughts. I don't love the formula that Disney Plus is pumping out right now. We saw it with Secret Invasion. 6 episodes is almost too short. It's almost like they're afraid of a 10-episode Game of Thrones style show with 50-minute to an hour-long episodes. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a budget thing. I don't know if it's because the audience.
Daredevil's about to be 18 episodes.
And that's good. I'm glad they're doing something like that, And
no, but I get you. Yeah.
And for instance, Andor, they had already announced that it was going to be 2 seasons of 8 episodes, or excuse me, maybe 10 episodes each. I forget now. But at least we know going into it, Andor ended with a kind of some loose ends. But then there's like, oh wait, well now we have that second season. Maybe this is all absolved with the second season of Ahsoka leading into that movie. But yeah, I don't know. Just the overall Disney Plus formula, on top of having to have that pre-required context, for a lot of people, it's a turnoff.
Yeah, I noticed something with Secret Invasion, and then the same thing happened with the show. If you look at the runtime, it'll be as low as like 29 minutes and as long as like 54. I need consistency in that
Yeah.
time. It's like, why is one episode going to matter more than another? I mean, in hindsight, yes, that might happen, but I just don't feel like some episodes are being treated as long or as short. Um, about that. So that's just one of my things, is the consistency with that formula. And you can kind of see the struggle where, just I know it's a lot going back and forth with the MCU and Star Wars, but you can say back from 2008 all the way till what 2018, it was 2-3 movies a year. That was it. So it allowed for a lot of focus. And I think now that we're pumping, 8 uh forms of media for the MCU, between movies, TV shows, you see that happening. You see that kind of that trajectory of just too much to focus on what is going to take priority, when honestly anything in the medium should take priority. Like everything should. That's kind of my worry with Star Wars. I saw that little bit of downfall with season 3 of Mandalorian. The Book of Boba Fett started really good. The world building was fantastic. And I can say the world building was really good here too. But from episode 3 all the way to the finale, it kind of became a meme of itself, especially with that season finale. So that's kind of my little bit worried. Not saying Ahsoka was a meme; it took itself very serious, which I enjoyed. But it's definitely, you can tell that, hey, there were just some episodes where one thing was just a little bit more important than the other. Steve, going back to your point, the actress who plays Sabine, I don't think it's on her at all. I just think it's the writing around the character. It's like, what do we want to do with her? I just personally wasn't a big fan of her. What are we doing with Balin, with Shin? So it's just some struggles like that where it's like, I need, if she's gonna have all the strongest force in the world, to push Ezra up to the ship. It's like, where's the reward? Where's the challenges where it's like this character deserved in order to do that? So just some little loose ends like that are just not the most satisfying for a TV show.
So Jay, I want to talk about your point about the Disney Plus formula. And do you mind just reiterating it real quick?
Yeah, I just think we kind of have this. There's two parts to this. One, it's this whole, and sorry, I'm even going to add Brandon's point to this. I do think we have too much being pumped out at once, especially with Marvel, but Star Wars too. We have 3 Star Wars shows this year, with a 4th slated to come out next year with the Skeleton Crew, which is a new show. Actually, 5 shows, because I've read they released Tales of the Jedi, which is a cartoon, and Clone Wars style animation. So I mean, there's just so much being pumped out right now. On top of working on a brand new Taika Waititi trilogy, like there's so much being pumped out in terms of Star Wars and Marvel, and I think it's kind of getting oversaturated. So I think there's a couple things to this, but this Disney Plus formula of, hey, we said you weren't going to have to watch prior shows to understand current media. So the big example I'll use is, if you didn't watch WandaVision, you were probably very lost during the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness when they said that wasn't going to be a necessity. 2, it's this sort of 6 to 8 episode formula, no consistent run times. Like Brandon said, they can be 29 minutes, they could be an hour. You really don't know. And some episodes are just clear setup, and some episodes are a little more impactful than others. So it's just, I don't really like it. I think of Game of Thrones, we can't really compare HBO. HBO is like the holy grail of shows. I think we all know that, right?
Yeah.
And any show they do is usually a hit. They rarely miss. I think because of that is they put the time in. We get hour to an hour and a half long. I mean, there's movie length episodes of some of their shows, and there's good exposition and dialogue and world building. One big problem I have with Ahsoka, the world building was good, but how did we only get 3 episodes in the New Galaxy? And it was all really, it felt rushed to wrap that up. So I just think the Disney Plus formula of 6 to 8 episodes, you don't know what the runtime is going to be going into it, usually a little on the shorter end. I feel like that's what's leading to some of these loose ends.
Yeah. I mean, look, when it came to the MCU shows that first came out, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Loki. Obviously,
Mhm.
I think Loki did the best out of all four of them. But I,
Mhm.
I you know, I enjoyed all four of those shows in their own way. I even enjoyed Moon Knight, for example.
Mhm.
But I guess my thing with the Disney Plus formula is I get what they're trying to do because these are not cheaply budgeted shows. Like these shows require a huge budget, and the only difference between why aren't we making this a movie and why is this a TV show is just the pull of the characters. You know, what is
Oh,
movie
for sure.
material and what is not really worth the movie investment because that comes at a much higher cost, right? You know, Hawkeye
Mhm.
is a movie. You know, we saw Ant-Man do subpar at the box office. Quantumania, you know,
Mhm.
wasn't the 700 million plus dollar giant that usually Marvel movies are. Um, your point about the episode lengths, you know, I think the my biggest thing is I need the writing to just be more on point because I'm okay with 6 to 8 episodes because that just if it's over long, if it's 20 episodes, I guarantee you it's probably 10 episodes too long to be honest with you because we can
Mhm.
get to
Mhm.
the point much
Mhm.
quicker than 20 episodes when it comes to shows like WandaVision, uh, you know, Hawkeye, all that stuff. Now going so my take on the Disney Plus formula is I think it's been okay so far. On the Star Wars level, I would have to do more research because I need to catch up on my live action Star Wars
Mhm.
shows. But as far as how they did it for the MCU, you know, I thought it was pretty good. I think the Star Wars shows as a whole are probably all fine in its own ways, and we're just
Mhm.
hypercritical. In returns of my issues with Ahsoka, I felt like if you're going to do Ahsoka, you need to have more of a reason for me to care about Ahsoka as a character,
Mhm.
for Star Wars fans and as non-Star Wars fans. And I felt like they kind of underbaked us on her character development. I understand, you know, she got to see Anakin on the brink of death in, you know, the dimension that she was in. Sorry, Jay, because you probably told me this 6 billion times, but I keep saying dimension. But I felt like, was that really character development to see Anakin? How did Anakin really develop her as a character? I know she was much
Mhm.
more, I guess, snarky and much more playful. You know, in the later episodes after that, um, but you know, her as a character, it just felt a little bland to me. In this show, I wanted to see some more tangible, like, who are you? What made you the way you are? And how are you dealing with the circumstances of all those events that happen in Rebels and the Clone Wars? And I felt like I didn't get a good understanding of that. Maybe you guys felt differently. And number two, I felt like this should have just been live action Rebels because I felt like I would have rather, instead of spending so much time with Ahsoka, I would have rather spent a lot more time with Ezra, with
Mhm.
Balin, with Shin, with some more prominent character from Rebels that you guys would know better. Because I
Mhm.
felt like I would have been more invested if I had a whole episode about Balin, right? About his
Yeah.
life and what he went through, you know? Even Shin. Why are you a rogue mercenary? You
Mhm.
know? Like there's some questions that I think needed to be answered. And in this finale, I think what we really just got was just more kind of bridging until the big movie that comes eventually or season 2. We didn't really
Mhm.
get a TV because my standards of a TV show, especially one that's you know, a great IP like Star Wars, is
Mhm.
if you're gonna do a season, I need this to be held at the same standards as I would an HBO show, where
Mhm.
from episode 1 to the last episode, we're getting great character development, we're getting good writing, we're not skipping any steps, right?
Mhm.
We're not getting
Mhm.
Sabine becoming a force master, literally like that, to where she's as strong as Ezra all of a sudden, or you know, like I don't want to skip steps in that regard, and I felt like they did
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, as far as my other gripes with the finale, um, do you feel like the fighting? Well, I did like the fighting in some parts of this episode, do you feel like the combat scenes were just kind of clunky at times? And I'm wondering, is it just because of like for Ahsoka? I felt like for how badass she is as a character, shouldn't I see more badassery from her?
Hmm.
One of the big things that's been brought up a lot on Twitter when they first announced Ahsoka as a live action show was her fighting style in the Clone Wars. Animation doesn't really translate to live action.
No.
One thing about the prequels compared to the original trilogy is the choreography, right? You
Yeah.
got Anakin and Obi-Wan twirling and doing all this, and it kind of makes sense, right? They're in their primes, they're able-bodied. Anakin's not a robot with 4 robotic limbs. And then obviously the original trilogy was made in 1977, so you can still see the sawdust coming off the wooden lightsabers
Yep.
when they fight, which is just
Yeah.
great and iconic, right? But one thing that I think really separates the prequels from the even the sequels, who had, in my opinion, some of the worst lightsaber duels I've ever seen, is the choreography. And shout out to an X user. I'm going to start using the terminology X because it's X now. But I was on the Ahsoka hashtag, and I forgot this user's name, so I doubt you're listening. But if you ever are, I'm sorry. They pointed out how the choreography was actually really, really sloppy. And as I was watching the video, I was like, damn, they're right. The choreography has gotten really sloppy. Now, there have been stories in the past of a lot of the actors struggling to pick up on the choreography. Two of the best, which honestly made a lot of sense when you watch their fight, is Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. So maybe Rosario Dawson kind of had trouble picking up some of that choreo because Ahsoka's lightsaber form in Clone Wars is, again, really hard to
And
translate
her
from
her
animation.
costume, maybe the costume's just too big on her head and she can't
It's a
move.
lot of makeup.
That's
I
it's
mean,
true. Yeah.
their hair and makeup department should get some Emmys though, because that, I mean, it
Oh
is
yeah.
great.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
Um,
Yeah.
But I felt like
but
almost maybe that hindered her in a way, the
yeah, I
actress
mean,
to performing, some more, I guess, athletic moves because look, you have
yeah, for sure.
this big ass whatever it is on your head.
Yeah.
You're plated up, you're plated up with armor, and in
Mhm.
a way, that's why I thought it looked clunky because it felt like Ahsoka should smoke Morgan Elizabeth. You know, that,
Yeah, yeah.
she
Yeah.
should, but she needs Sabine's help.
It felt very when we saw Ahsoka debut back in live action in Mandalorian season 2, they almost made it very Kill Bill style choreography. So I don't know if it felt more for like that ninja style type of choreography. That's the type of battle I felt like I saw when Morgan Elsbeth and Ahsoka battled for the first time in Mandalorian season 2. I
Mhm.
just, I don't know. I mean, I'm also trying to think Ahsoka's a lot older, right? I mean, when we saw her in Clone Wars, yes, the animation, the way they can jump around, move around, a lot different than live action, obviously. But I'm trying to also maybe consider like maybe they're trying to think, hey, she's a lot older now. I mean, if you think about what 25, 30 years span between Clone Wars to
Good point.
post Return of the Jedi. I mean, that's just me trying to overthink, but it's just maybe that could do some of it. But you're right. I feel like we should see her, you know, Stephen, you brought up a really good point. We should see her not have a problem with some of these stormtroopers, kind of like in
Mhm.
the the prequels with the Roger Rogers, they're
Real.
they're broken up to pieces like really quick and it's almost a meme. So it's I felt like it should have been a little bit more of that. Maybe struggle with the zombies a bit, maybe struggle with which form Morgan Elspeth, but I don't know. Those are just some things I'm trying to think. I saw that with the sequel trilogy too. I don't know if you guys did. I felt like those battles
Mhm.
were a little bit slower too. I don't know if it was for the intensity sake of it, maybe more of the practical effect over CGI that we saw in the
Mhm.
prequel. So I'm just trying to think of what, not to defend it to its complete right, but but I'm trying to think of why it's a possibility on why we came to this point and why the choreography is this way.
Well, I got one question for you guys. And I
Mhm.
mentioned how I liked when Thrawn turned Morgan Elizabeth to a witch.
Mhm.
And maybe we'll answer this after the break.
Mhm.
But her as the final villain, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
I get it.
Yeah,
you know, I'm
and
gonna
and
need
just
I'm gonna need your takes after the break.
Yeah.
I'll just give you a little backstory. She was using a famous Dathomirian sword, of course, introduced in Clone Wars,
Mhm.
that the original grandmother fought Mace Windu with. So that
Mhm.
was kind of a little cool callback that it's one of the blades that can withstand a lightsaber. So that was pretty cool. I do want to end on one quick point. I do think what was really cool about it, going back to Sabine's kind of inability to use the Force, is if you watch the fight where it's the scene of those three deflecting blasters, Ezra and Ahsoka are having no issues. They're
Mhm.
deflecting them right back at the stormtroopers, and
Mhm.
Sabine actually takes one to the dome that her helmet
Yep.
blocks, and then
Yeah.
when she's deflecting them with her lightsaber, they're actually just going straight into the ground. So I guess that was a good use of showing that she doesn't really have her full power, or the full power of a
Mhm.
Jedi, if you
Yeah.
will. Where we've always seen in the Clone Wars, the prequels, the
I
Jedi's
don't know.
no
She used the
issue. Oh,
Force and sent Ezra flying, dude. Like pretty far. That seemed like advanced Force using, if I
We're
may
gonna
say.
go. We're gonna go 5 episodes from now talking about a random TV show, and you're gonna be like, "Dude, she just pushed him up." It's like, wish I got
it'll
it.
be
That you
But honestly, Jay,
no, that
honestly,
did
Jay and
feel
Brandon, like,
yeah.
didn't
I
that
get it.
seem a little unrealistic? I know it's Star
I
Wars,
agree. No,
but
no, yeah, I agree with you on that point. Just I don't know. I'm telling you, I need the reward. I need the reward for you to do that as a character, and we didn't get that,
Jay doesn't
immediately.
agree. I
So
could tell he
yeah.
doesn't agree.
No, I do agree. I actually wholeheartedly agree, and it's something that we'll have to dive into after the
Yep.
break, because I do want to talk about it more, and overall force power in general, because it is becoming an issue in Star Wars. We
Yep.
saw it in the sequels. It seems like some
Hmm.
people are learning it really quickly. So yeah, we'll definitely
Yeah.
dive into it. We're going to take a quick
Hmm.
break. When we come back, we'll also just give our overall thoughts. We're also going to break down the Priscilla trailer. So stay with us. All right, welcome back. We're going to try to give an overall recap of Ahsoka as a show and our overall thoughts. This was, in my opinion, a true Star Wars feel. Like I said, in the beginning, we had dogfights, we had space battles, lightsaber duels, throwbacks, and callbacks. So to me, it was a real good Star Wars feel. It appeases the Star Wars nerd in me. I thought there were some loose ends again to tie up. I guess just from a pure Star Wars perspective, I really did like the show. Finale, again, a real Star Warsy feel, and I could see why some people might be upset. Some loose ends tied up,
Hmm.
but for me, this gave me a really good callback to those prequel movies, having Hayden Christensen. Obvious spoiler at this point. If you're listening to this, I'm assuming you've watched. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really, really liked the Star Wars feel of it. For Steve bringing up some of the points just from a purely actor and actress and plot and all that, totally justified and valid.
Hmm.
And I agree with a lot of the points he makes. But for me, it felt like true Star Wars again. And that's something that Star Wars has been sort of lacking.
Hmm.
Mandalorian, I think of it as a space Western.
Hmm.
And that's why
Yeah.
I think season two finale is so good, because you get some of that Star Wars element again. Book of Boba Fett, it felt like Power Rangers made for kids. I don't know. And then Andor again, very good in my opinion, the best Star Wars content we've gotten in a long time. But again, more of a spy crime thriller.
Yeah.
This felt like Star Wars again.
Yeah. I would say and we talked about so much the way episode one just opened. I felt the chills. I felt, man, this is like Star Wars again. Like this is if I am watching the prequels or even the original trilogy. Just that whole opening was just something that I still remember the most out of the show. I would say in terms of the world building, just everything, the way it opened, the way it was setting up at first. I think everything maybe up to episode, I would say 5 or 6 was definitely the most. I would say that's when it kind of started to go down a little bit. I'd say for the most part, it definitely carried itself really well. But yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Hey, look, solid show. I haven't seen a lot of Star Wars shows. I thought it was decent. I thought it
Hmm.
was a decent show. I thought the writing was all over the place. I'm not going to call it god awful, but I thought it was
Hmm.
all over the place. I would have liked to see more character development. Truthfully, I would have loved this if this was Rebels this was a Rebels focused show where we have Ahsoka who functions as your like your Jon Snow in essence, or your or where we know Jon Snow's the main character, but he's a part of a grander scheme ensemble cast of characters, but I thought it did have those classic Star Wars moments. When one of my favorite scenes was seeing Ahsoka waking up as a younger version of herself and seeing those stormtroopers come out of the fog. I thought that was quite that's cinema right there. It's very cinematic, and I thought that whole sequence with Anakin, flashback to the Clone Wars, that's great stuff right there. That's great stuff right there. But the main plot was really uninteresting. Just really uninteresting. Because if the premise of the show was, hey, we need to save, if one of the premises is, hey, we need to save Ezra. Okay, he's saved, but now Ezra is in the same position Ahsoka was in, and now Ahsoka needs to be saved.
Everyone just switched places.
Yeah, in a way. It's, you bring up a good point, Steve. I feel like when you watch a movie, TV show, whatever it is, simple as possible, something that we're all taught in film class or just screenwriting class, there's your point A to point B. What is the one resolution that needs to be done? From the beginning of the show, it almost made it seem like the what needs to be accomplished by the end of this season is saving Ezra, bring him back. I feel like once we got to that, yes, I think the fan service, the need was, yes, we need to also see Thrawn back too. But I feel like once we got to episode 5 or 6, it kind of felt like that final scene at the end of Finding Nemo, where all the fish were like, "What now?" It's like, what do we do now? So that's just one little gripe that I have to agree with Steve. It's like, yes, the one thing that the point of the show made its point, and I think that one little part of Ezra making it back to Hera, I think that was a little bit, I wouldn't say to the point of theory, but it was a little emotional that, like, look, he got back to Hera, he's finally there. But you're right, it's kind of like, oh yeah, what about Ahsoka and Sabine now? Like, what do I do?
Just a human element that I wanted to see, and this is so dumb. I just wanted to see Ezra asking a bunch of questions. This is a guy that's been gone for like what? How long was the original trilogy over? Like several years. Okay, he left before he didn't even know the Death Star existed, if you think about it. Like, this guy probably missed so much. This is a guy that went toe to toe with Inquisitors and eventually Darth Vader. He fought Darth Vader, and he was gonna lose easily until Ahsoka saved him. And this is a guy that probably had so many questions, and you kind of saw a little bit when he was like, at least it worked, and he goes, it worked, right? Like insinuating that, like, hey, we won the war. But I just want to see a scene of him being like, okay, so what happened to that guy in the black suit that I fought in like season 2? What happened? How did we win? What did we do? Who were some of the main cogs? I mean, this is a guy that also met Leia. Leia, a huge part of the rebellion, and eventually won the war for them. Did he ever ask, like, hey, whatever happened to that princess I went on a mission with? Like, these are questions that I would have loved to just see him ask as a human. Like, hey, and Sabine explaining, like, hey, yeah, so there was this battle with a bunch of furballs and Ewoks and all this, right? Like, so I don't know. That was just a dumb thing I would have really liked to see. And it goes back to, like, maybe letting that writing breathe a little. Like, it adds to the character development of Ezra. Ezra's been gone, but we're all humans. We're curious about what happened during. I mean, he was a big part of the war, and all we ever get is like, so we won. I don't know. That's just me.
What about Sabine? What do you guys think of Sabine? I did not like her character because in the end, her character, if you think about it, was acting like a child most of the season, and ending up. I mean, then what happened was you save Ezra. Okay, great, but now you unleash General Thrawn to the whole galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, was her actions, the way her actions were written, like, is she that stupid? And is it but also, is the implications of General Thrawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, if she had an idea General Thrawn could be a possibility of coming, but along the lines, was her trying to save Ezra, like, I don't know, like, the situation ended up being, hey, we saved Ezra, and now Thrawn's let upon and about to fuck shit up in the galaxy. And I, honestly, Thrawn was doing some weird stuff that episode too. I thought, why didn't this guy just kill Ezra and Sabine when he had the chance? But
No,
what did you guys
I
think of
will.
Sabine, her motivations, and just the implications of what she done led to Thrawn? Like, did you guys have an issue with that?
No, actually I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because that is her character in the show Rebels. She's impulsive. Just a little backstory about her. She was a weapons manufacturer for the Empire and saw all the bad they were doing and defected. And that's how she ends up joining the Ghost Crew. And she meets Ezra. And it's funny because the show starts off very Disney. Ezra has a crush on Sabine. And then they end up kind of growing into this brother-sister bond. And everything she does speaks to her character in Rebels. She's impulsive, doesn't think it through. And I think there's an episode where she gets the dark saber, the black saber, and you know, she starts training with Kanan and Ezra. At this point, Ezra is a pretty full-fledged Jedi, if you will, and Kanan's pretty much in master mode. And he's explaining to Hera over the phone because they're in different areas of the planet, and he says, everyone has the Force, just some are better at it than others. She doesn't trust herself. And that's kind of the theming they stick with. One thing I didn't like is that she's Ahsoka's apprentice. I thought that was a little forced. I don't think everyone needs to be an apprentice.
I agree.
Yeah, I get it. Everyone has the Force. It's kind of like, are you LeBron James? Are you Michael Jordan? Or are you like, someone who played in high school and you didn't go any further? I get that, and I love that aspect of the Force, but I don't love the fact that everyone suddenly, like you said, can just force push Ezra through the air, and they're good at it all of a sudden. So it does speak to her character. Her character in the show is a little whiny, but one thing they really stuck to that I love in live action, she's an elite fighter. She doesn't lose many fights, and you saw that in this show. You never really saw her wield a saber in Rebels, so I like that she really struggled against Shin in this show. She never really won a fight, but when it comes to blasters, no one's going to beat her. And that just speaks also to her being a Mandalorian. But yeah, I thought her character was very true to the show.
That's fair. And I mean, that's it. Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. And it's like, I don't know. And then I'm looking at it the way from the writing perspective. I just felt like this character didn't add a lot to the show. I mean, yes, you can say once she was captured, Ahsoka sensed kind of her feel or her decisions that help towards her finding her and going to the space whales, which I'm still trying to think through on how that ship didn't logically go back into the the back of the whales.
How did that ship not go through the whale's anus?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, if you think about it, the ship didn't go into hyperspace, but the whale did. So you would think the whale, like, I'm using my AirPods, right? It's like this is it's like if this goes into hyperspace, but this isn't here, this doesn't. This is gonna go that way. I'm just trying to think that through. But anyway,
Star Wars is a lot better when physics doesn't exist. There's a lot of things. There's a great segment, and maybe we'll put it in our YouTube link this week. There's a great segment on History Channel or Discovery Channel or something where they do how physics actually doesn't work in Star Wars, and it's really good.
I mean, Jimmy Neutron was just, I mean, think about that alone, how people breathe and we're talking space. But no, on a very serious point, I see both of your points when it came to Sabine's character. I just don't think it was the actress. Yes, she did seem a little annoying. Some of her decisions, you as the viewer was like, oh my God, no, why did you do that? It's more of, I just don't feel like her purpose was fully meant to be there. I want to see, why was this character in this show? Why was she written in? I needed to see a little bit more of that. So that's something where I am more on Steve's side about that when it came to that. But I like that it was true to the show. Yes, perfect. But I just don't feel like she added a lot more, where it's like if she was completely removed, maybe the show or the series could have worked out well.
Well, I also, I kind of wish we saw some of that backstory as to why Ahsoka wouldn't train her. We get some hints of it. Hu Yang even mentioned it in the finale here, that her family died in the Mandalorian bombing from the Empire. I would have liked to see that because that's real character development. She loses everyone she loves and cares about, and it kind of taps into her using the dark side a little this season. So
Mhm.
that is definitely something I would have liked to see. And it goes back to just maybe
Mhm.
poor writing and not showing us some of those flashbacks. And maybe they're saving it for second season that just hasn't been announced yet. Again, there's a lot of this. Maybe
Mhm.
also just goes back to the fact that we don't know what comes next. Is it the movie? Is it Mando season 4? Is it Book of Boba Fett season 2? I really don't know what comes next.
That's true. And I mean, the same thing goes for Shin. I would have loved to learn a lot more about her.
Mm.
How did Balin find her? Was she a youngling that was survived and maybe he took her with her?
Was she a prostitute?
Was she going to be sold to French guys in Turkey?
Just so you know,
Disney,
prostitutes do exist in Star Wars.
or do they? Okay, I was gonna say I didn't think Disney
The
would.
crime world is real. The crime
Yeah.
world is real in Star
Yeah.
Wars. So yes,
we
things
we
like that
saw
do
it.
exist.
We saw it in episode 1 of Andor.
Yeah.
So it's
All right. Well, I guess I'm not too far fetched. Who knows?
Who knows?
I
Yeah.
do want to ask you guys real quick when we wrap up our Ahsoka, who wins the
Mhm.
show for you? I think for me, the easy answer is Balin and Ray Stevenson,
Balin.
R.I.P.
Mhm.
Yeah, a masterful performance, masterclass in acting. I want to learn
Mhm.
so much more about his character, and I don't know what the plans are for.
Mhm.
Obviously you can't really plan
Mhm.
on certain external
Mhm.
elements happening, but for me, Balin wins the show.
So Balin MVP, NBA MVP.
I would say for me, it's the world building, the settings. I think they were just really beautiful. The way, especially the forest. We only got what 2, 3 episodes of it, which I think
Mhm.
was enough. And honestly, in my opinion, but just seeing the different set pieces, seeing the different lands, the landscapes. I thought that was really well done. So for me, I have to say that's one thing I appreciate the most of the show.
One thing Star Wars is always going to do well, it's set design and costume design. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
and special effects, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
other than revolutionizing the special
Mm-hmm.
effects game, I think set design has always been one of their
Mm-hmm.
strong suits.
Yeah. Final
Yeah.
ratings, by the way, for this.
Ooh,
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
6.7 out of 10.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it 7. There was some good stuff in
Eh,
it.
I was gonna say I'm a little more Star Wars. Yeah, I'm gonna go 7.2.
Yeah.
For some of it just feels like Star Wars again, just as a true
That's
Star
fair.
Wars
That's
nerd.
absolutely fair. Yeah.
Literally wearing the T-shirt right here with Boba Fett's face on it.
Hey, I wore my Galaxy's Edge t-shirt, 2 episodes ago. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go 7.2. I do think they fell a little flat towards
Mhm.
the end.
Mhm.
I would have also liked to see a lot more Thrawn.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see more Thrawn, but also I think they almost fumbled Thrawn a bit in terms of, was he that much of a mastermind if you don't kill 2 of the Jedi that are there when you had the
Mhm.
chance to, you know?
It's hard. It's I don't know. It's a little difficult because
He had Sabine, Brandon. You had him
yeah.
right. You could have literally murked her.
It's Steve just wants his character off.
Well, I mean,
But this
honestly
also, I
though,
mean,
like,
No,
why
yeah.
wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? Like,
I
honestly.
mean, you're
so
right.
this
With his strength, I feel like realistically he would be able to at least maybe kill off one of these 3, right? I mean, it's one way to
Mhm.
put it. Yeah.
I mean, you're telling me they all 3 of them avoided the bombardment from the Star Destroyer, like
Oh,
it's just classic TV and Star Wars.
great,
But
great. Yeah.
I will say, just Thrawn's character is a mastermind. He's a tactician. He's
Mhm.
always doing something with a plan in mind, and I think you kind of saw that where he let Sabine go and then had Balin and Shin follow her. But what I don't think he anticipated, the big monkey wrench and everything, was Ahsoka coming to save everyone. So,
Yeah.
one thing in the show Rebels, he does get beaten a lot because there's always a monkey wrench, and that's just Star Wars. So,
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a solid show.
Yeah.
I think the fan service is really good in the
Mhm.
show. For a fan
yeah.
like you, Jay, a fan like you, Brandon. I
Mhm.
will say, would I rather see a different studio handle these Star Wars stories than Disney? Yes, because I think Disney isn't doing well, at least for this show. The writing should be so much better because it's
Mhm.
such a
Mhm.
beautiful,
Mhm.
expansive universe with such interesting characters. A lot of these characters aren't, they're from previous iterations and previous shows. And so it's decent, but I do wish if we could get a better studio to write these shows, I think we get better Star Wars, my opinion.
I agree. Yeah.
A24.
I wanted to say it, but it's like, damn, A24 Star Wars. Whew.
Well, I
man.
mean, this is a good segue because we are going to talk an upcoming A24 film, and we all saw it come out on Twitter 2 days ago, the Priscilla trailer, which is something we've all we immediately sent it in our group chat, and we're like, we're ready to watch this. So, yeah, overall thoughts. I just rewatched it in our break here, and I'm excited for this movie. Usually, anything A24 puts out, I will watch. But I don't know. Overall thoughts. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's one. So I was actually talking to a coworker today who's a big Elvis Presley fan. Just loved the music, listened to it with her grandmother, and we both brought up a good point. It almost feels too fresh, just because we did just have the Legendary Studios, I believe it was, with Elvis Presley, with Baz Luhrmann. Um, it's and Boz, with Legendary, with Warner Brothers, is a lot different on the other side than A24. That's more of a darker indie type of style. And Sophia Coppola, two completely different directors. So it's interesting, but it just feels a little bit too soon for me. That's just one thing, but I'm not here to talk about that. For me, it's more something like what Jackie came out with, Natalie Portman. I love that we're telling the story of this icon, of this person who definitely deserves to tell her story told. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the abusive side of who Elvis Presley was towards his wife, towards women too. So that's something that I think we're going to see a lot more of a darker side of, just seeing her story be told. I think that's something that I'm really, really excited for and looking forward to. The actors look really incredible as well. And nothing on Austin Butler, but oh man, but
Jacob Elordi.
Jacob Elordi,
Jacob Elordi, yeah.
Laurie, who's playing Elvis, you can tell he's got the height, he's got the looks too. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good competitive run for these two great actors as Elvises.
Yeah, talking about Baz Luhrmann, he did The Great Gatsby. I'm missing another film. I'm trying to think of another Baz Luhrmann film.
Romeo plus Juliet, which was great. I love that movie.
Was that in '96?
It was, I believe, I want to say 96.
With Claire Danes and Leo, right?
Yeah, Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was such an interesting movie because we watched that in school.
Yeah,
and I remember
I did too. Yeah.
I remember thinking, why do these guys have guns? But then I was like, okay, it's a modern take. All right, but look, Baz Luhrmann, nice director. This is Sofia Coppola. All right, Sofia Coppola, just Academy Award-winning director. This is the person you want directing a biopic like this. Not to mention, you get the studio along with it, because the one thing A24 is going to do, it's not going to glamorize and over movie dramatize this film the way Elvis was. Elvis was a film that is classic Hollywood bait. It's a classic biopic that will make you want to root for this character, make you feel sorry for him, make you feel bad for him, be emotionally invested in him. But it's all in a dramatized way. It's in a way that will make you seem like there's a hero, and Austin Butler's the hero. Elvis is a hero in that movie in a way, right? He's a savior, right? He came from humble beginnings. Had to deal with some BS manager. But here's the thing that I like about this film, with this trailer, it's going to give you that raw side, Brandon, and it's the beauty of A24. It'll give you the raw side to the point of uncomfortable. Like, I see this film being uncomfortable because a lot of A24 films are uncomfortable, and they're not focused on pleasing the viewer. You see a movie like Elvis, it's obviously going to play to the crowd. A24 does not do that. I remember seeing The Green Knight in theaters, and I really like that movie, but it's a movie that turned a lot of people off because it's a movie that stays true to a filmmaker's vision, and it doesn't cut itself in a way that takes away from that vision. Because generally, you'll see movies that get reshot. We need to add this. We need to add more crowd pleasing moments, right?
Yeah.
I think with this film, we're gonna get some really raw imagery. We're gonna get some really raw performances, very mature in its nature. Whereas Elvis, I think, was playing on the lines of kind of a teenage dream, like in terms of there's a target audience that is adults, but look, it's Austin Butler. We want to get the the fangirls in the crowd.
Yeah.
This is actually telling a story about, I think, the relationship between obviously Priscilla and Elvis, but you're also going to get kind of the hardships and the real cold hard truths of that era. You know, how women are viewed in that era. How a man of dominance like Elvis, how he asserted his dominance not only to Priscilla but to the world, and how he viewed the world. And get into some uncomfortable stuff. So I'm excited. I mean, this could, in my opinion, go as maybe one of A24's highest grossing films.
Yeah.
If the marketing for this is up to snuff, and you know, and you know, A24 does a good job promoting it, which, you know, they usually do lower budget stuff, so it's always a little hit or miss in terms of marketing. But it looks like a great movie. Looks like a great movie. So
Hey, listen,
Yeah.
A24's fresh off of Best Picture with Everything Everywhere All at Once. So
yeah,
you know, they're on an all-time heater right now. But I think we're setting up the Presley verse. Is that what's going on here? We got
both
I
the
will say
multiverse one. They're
Lordy.
both sets of characters are gonna come out.
Multiverse. And honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, I think Elordi, Jacob Elordi's playing Elvis. I
yeah.
think he's going to be better than Austin Butler. I really
Well,
do.
think-
poor Austin Butler's already been catching strays on Twitter. Everyone's saying, man, that
Yeah.
the guy wasted 3 years practicing his Elvis accent to be outplayed in a trailer.
And the thing is, too, it's like Austin Butler was nominated for an Academy Award. If we are saying, and I think Elordi's going to give a better performance, is Elvis the type of role where it'll garner you an Academy Award nomination, similar to Joker, where you have Heath Ledger's character get nominated? I don't know if Jack Nicklaus was back in the day for an Academy. I'm not sure if he was.
Yeah, I'm not sure about
But
that.
obviously,
Not
you
sure
have
about that,
but obviously you have Joaquin Phoenix, and there's
Yeah.
the role of Joker has that gravitas to where it'll get you that Oscar buzz. I mean,
Yeah.
if Austin Butler was nominated for Best Actor, are we going to see the same for Elordi, maybe in the Best Supporting Actor role? It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
And one thing I really want to say about the trailer did a really good job of shifting tones. It starts off so fun. It's cute, it's romance, and then like halfway, literally at the halfway point of the trailer, you get into some really dark stuff. Just a story. You know, I used to have a TV in my car, one of those drop downs. My dad installed it for us, and we would always watch this movie called The Naked Gun. A lot of people don't know about it. It's Leslie Nielsen, an icon, R.I.P. But you know, I was fresh off of watching Airplane, which is another iconic comedy. And you know, Leslie Nielsen is now starring in this role, and the love interest is Priscilla Presley. And I remember, you know, my first thought was when my mom first said, "Oh my God, is that Priscilla Presley? That's Elvis's wife." You think of glamour, you're like, and I'm at this point in middle school, about to go to high school, and I'm thinking like, "Oh my God, Priscilla Presley, like she must have had it all." And then you dive deeper into her story, and I wonder how many people coming into this movie don't know about the stuff she went through, the grooming allegations that have been just jumping on Twitter because of this movie now. And you can probably call it grooming. She was, you know, in high school, and they kind of touch on it in this trailer already. So, you know, it's really good stuff that, you know, we're going to kind of get this biopic, and I'm so excited. And one thing A24 does so well is kind of taking actors and actresses you've never heard of and turning them into household names. If you look at like just the filmography for a lot of the actors in this movie, you're like, I've never heard of any of this. And Lordy here is actually a Kissing Booth alum. I'm a big rom-com guy, so Kissing Booth on Netflix, watch it. But yeah, you know, these aren't household names we have for this project, and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. Something, I mean, even you can say like, I don't know, in a way, like Austin Butler, if you think about it, after the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, he just was kind of disappeared a bit. So it was good to see him. I don't know if it's just an Elvis curse or something, but but yeah, no, it's great to see. I mean, even like I don't know, A24. I really love the ghost story. I don't know about same thing what Steve said of kind of the way the Green Knight made some people feel uncomfortable and like, oh, I'm not really into this. Same thing. I heard a lot. I love a ghost story. And I know I remember it being back in college, a lot of people were like, this was trash. It was very slow, very boring. I was like, oh, you're looking at it the very wrong way. I think this movie will be a little bit more fast paced than both titles, respectively. But I just don't think it's going to take away from that style. And that's something I am ready to see the darkness, just how gross possibly of his person, not saying like not saying like or anything at all, and RIP, but but if we are going to see a dark side of that we just don't see through a lot of celebrities in the past, especially in the time where women were viewed more as trophies or something you can own rather than being the love of your life now.
Yeah. No, I mean, people thought, there are people that didn't like Everything Everywhere All at Once,
And
right?
that's going to happen. Yeah.
So A24 it's a studio that will, it'll come with people didn't like Uncut Gems. It's
Yeah.
I personally I love all those movies.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that they're the ones distributing this movie. I'm happy to see Sofia Coppola being the director of this movie. Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait. When does it release? November 3rd. Okay.
Yeah.
Just a little fun fact about her directing this movie, Sofia Coppola. She was an actress in The Phantom Menace, which a lot of people don't know. I learned this today. I tweeted it out on her
Get
Twitter
out of
page.
here.
She is one of the handmaidens for Queen Amidala. So she plays a character named Sachet, which is just so George Lucas. He probably saw a sash or something like that on a prom queen. It was like it was like that's a character. But yeah, she plays one of the handmaidens. You barely see her face. It took forever for me to find even a picture on Google Images. So yeah, this is pretty cool to as Steve said, go from that to Academy Award nominated, and I actually think this could nail her a nomination for Best Director, and I'd love to see female representation in that department because this year also I think it's pretty much penciled in. We're going to get Scorsese in that department this year with Killers of the Flower Moon set to come out. We're probably going to get. Well, I was originally going to say Villeneuve, but they moved Dune, so I don't know about that now.
Yeah,
but
maybe Ridley Scott with Napoleon.
Yeah, I was. Yep, Ridley Scott, and there's probably some other movies earlier this year that I saw.
It's loaded. We're gonna have to do an episode on some upcoming movies because there's some big slate coming up. So.
There's a lot of good directors this year, and I think she's gonna earn a nom for at least Best Director, maybe even Best Picture with the expanded categories now. So I'm really excited for this. I think it's gonna be really good. I love that tonal shift from hey, this is going to be a romance to, well, it's going to get really dark really fast.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's also going to be kind of like a coming of age story, right? Because she's 14 and it'll cover her life from when she was 14 years old to 27 or 28 years old. And, it's going to be interesting seeing her development. And, it's a story I don't know too much about other than what like people speculate on. So it'll be interesting to get to know, like, how much they dig into what really happened. Obviously, it's a movie, so maybe we'll see how true they stay to the script, so to speak, because you have, apparently the Elvis Presley state saying, this movie's kind of defamatory, but Priscilla Presley is saying, no, I'm approving this movie. And so we'll see, right?
That's true. If she approved it, if it's because she was able to see, like, yes, this could be a good something that is a true story. So it's up there for a reason. It's going to be the movie theaters because she approved of it. That's a good point, Steve. So that's something I'm excited to see. What more of the truth we just don't know, or we haven't seen.
We're gonna have to save this for an episode, but we might need to do a biopic draft or episode or something. I mean, there's been some good ones in recent years. I remember watching 42, the Jackie Robinson story. That's a really good one with Chadwick Boseman, and there's obviously Elvis and there's Priscilla, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other. You have the Walk Hard and type movie. So. Or Walk the Line. Walk Hard is actually the spoof of it.
Dewey Cox
the Dewey Cox story, which is a really dumb one, but I recommend it. But yeah, we'll have to do a biopic draft because that is. There's been some good ones in recent years, and I just can't wait to dive further into this movie. Any closing thoughts, guys? I think this has been a fun episode, and we're done with Ahsoka. Loki comes out soon, so
Ahsoka,
way to combine both. Same week.
Can't wait to watch some Loki.
Yeah, I love how season 1 ended.
Yep.
I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah.
Well, follow us on all socials, Balls Deep Cinema Podcast, and we're going to bring up some some new stuff next week, so I can't wait to get started. Halloween's coming up. We'll have a horror movie episode. So yeah, thank you for listening and tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.
Yeah.